The Renovation Rumble. Part 1. The conflict begins. In the heart of a bustling suburban neighborhood, the Martinez family was buzzing with excitement. After years of saving and planning, they had finally decided to renovate their home. The project promised to transform their modest abode into a dream house, complete with a modern kitchen, a spacious living room, and a cozy outdoor patio. As the sun rose on the first day of construction, the sound of hammers and drills filled the air, echoing through the quiet streets. However, not everyone shared the Martinez's enthusiasm. Next door, Mrs. Patel, a retired schoolteacher, cherished her peaceful afternoons spent tending to her garden and reading on her porch. The sudden cacophony of construction noise shattered her tranquility, and she felt her sanctuary slipping away. After a few days of enduring the relentless clamor, Mrs. Patel decided it was time to confront her neighbors. One sunny afternoon, she mustered her courage and walked over to the Martinez home, where the sounds of construction were at their peak. As she approached, she could see the workers bustling about, and the sight of the half-demolished house made her heart sink. She knocked on the door, and after a moment Mrs. Martinez appeared, wiping her hands on a towel, her face flushed with excitement. "Hello, Mrs. Patel. Come in." Mrs. Martinez greeted her warmly, unaware of the brewing storm. "Thank you, but I can't stay long," Mrs. Patel replied, her voice steady but tinged with frustration. "I wanted to talk to you about the noise. It's been quite disruptive, especially during my quiet hours in the afternoon." Mrs. Martinez's smile faltered slightly. "Oh, I'm so sorry. We're just trying to get everything done as quickly as possible. We didn't realize it was bothering you." Mrs. Patel nodded, trying to remain calm. "I understand that renovations can be noisy, but I would appreciate it if you could keep it down during the afternoons. I often take my naps then, and it's been quite difficult." "I'll see what I can do," Mrs. Martinez promised, though she felt a twinge of annoyance. She was excited about the renovations and didn't want to feel constrained by her neighbors' preferences. As Mrs. Patel left, she couldn't shake the feeling that her neighbor was being overly sensitive. The next day, the construction continued, and the noise levels remained high. Mrs. Patel, feeling increasingly frustrated, decided to take matters into her own hands. If the Martinezes wouldn't respect her quiet hours, she would find a way to make her voice heard. That afternoon, she turned on her stereo and blasted her favorite classical music, hoping to drown out the sounds of construction. The soothing melodies filled her home, but they also spilled out into the yard, creating a new layer of noise that clashed with the ongoing renovations next door. As the days passed, the tension between the two families escalated. The Martinezes, feeling unfairly targeted, continued their work without regard for Mrs. Patel's complaints. They were determined to finish the project on time, and the noise became a source of pride for them, a sign of progress. Meanwhile, Mrs. Patel's music grew louder, and the two families found themselves in a back and forth of escalating noise complaints. Neighbors began to notice the growing rift. Some sympathized with Mrs. Patel, while others understood the Martinez's excitement about their new home. The once friendly atmosphere of the neighborhood began to shift, and whispers of the renovation rumble spread among the residents. It was clear that something had to change, but neither family was willing to back down. As the weeks dragged on, the construction continued, and the music blared. The neighborhood was caught in the crossfire of a conflict that seemed to have no end in sight. Little did they know, a resolution was on the horizon, one that would require both families to come together and find common ground. Part 2. Escalation. As the days turned into weeks, the tension between the Martinezes and Mrs. Patel reached a boiling point. The construction crew worked tirelessly, hammering and drilling from dawn until dusk, while Mrs. Patel retaliated with her ever-increasing volume of classical music. The once peaceful neighborhood was now a battleground of noise, and the residents were beginning to take sides. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood, Mrs. Patel decided to take her stand. She opened her windows wide and cranked up the volume on her stereo, letting the soothing strains of Beethoven fill the air. The music wafted over to the Martinez home, where the workers were busy installing new windows. The sound of the construction was momentarily drowned out, and Mrs. Patel felt a sense of victory. However, the Martinezes were not about to let their hard work be overshadowed. They responded by turning on their own speakers, blasting upbeat pop music to compete with Mrs. Patel's classical tunes. The two homes became a cacophony of sound, each family trying to outdo the other. Neighbors peered out from their windows, some shaking their heads in disbelief, while others chuckled at the absurdity of the situation. The escalating noise war took a toll on both families. Mrs. Patel found herself increasingly agitated, unable to enjoy her garden or her afternoon tea. The constant noise made it difficult for her to concentrate on her reading, and she felt her peaceful sanctuary slipping further away. Meanwhile, the Martinezes, though excited about their renovations, began to feel the strain of the conflict. The construction workers were growing weary of the back and forth, and the atmosphere on the job site became tense. One evening, after a particularly loud day of construction and music, Mrs. Patel decided she had had enough. She marched over to the Martinez home, her heart pounding with frustration. She knocked on the door, and when Mrs. Martinez answered, Mrs. Patel wasted no time. "Enough is enough," she exclaimed, her voice rising above the noise. "This has gone too far. I can't take it any more." Mrs. Martinez, taken aback by the outburst, tried to remain calm. "I understand you're upset, but we're just trying to finish our renovations. We didn't mean to disturb you." "Disturb me? You've turned my life upside down." Mrs. Patel shot back, her frustration boiling over. "I can't enjoy my home anymore. You need to stop the noise during my quiet hours." The two women stood facing each other, the tension palpable. It was clear that neither was willing to back down, and the conflict had escalated to a point where a resolution seemed impossible. As they exchanged heated words, the construction workers paused, glancing at each other with concern. The neighborhood was on edge, and it was evident that something had to change. In the days that followed, the situation only worsened. The Martinezes continued their renovations, and Mrs. Patel's music grew louder in retaliation. The neighborhood was now divided, with some residents siding with Mrs. Patel, while others supported the Martinezes. The once friendly atmosphere had turned into a battleground, and the community was beginning to feel the strain of the ongoing conflict. Recognizing that the situation was spiraling out of control, the neighborhood association decided to intervene. They organized a mediation session, inviting both families to come together and discuss their grievances in a controlled environment. It was a last-ditch effort to restore peace to the neighborhood, and both families reluctantly agreed to attend. As the date of the mediation approached, both families prepared for the meeting. Mrs. Patel gathered her thoughts, determined to express her feelings without letting her emotions get the best of her. The Martinezes, on the other hand, were anxious about how the meeting would unfold, hoping to find a way to finish their renovations without further conflict. Little did they know, this mediation session would be the turning point in their ongoing feud, leading them toward a resolution that neither had anticipated. Part 3. Seeking Justice. The day of the mediation session arrived, and both families approached the community center with a mix of apprehension and hope. The air was thick with tension as they entered the room, where a neutral mediator awaited them. The mediator, a calm and experienced woman named Ms. Thompson, greeted them with a warm smile and invited them to sit in a circle. "Thank you both for coming," Ms. Thompson began, her voice soothing. "I know this situation has been challenging for both of you, and I'm here to help facilitate a constructive conversation. Let's start by sharing your perspectives. Mrs. Patel, would you like to go first?" Mrs. Patel took a deep breath, her heart racing. "Thank you, Ms. Thompson. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I've lived in this neighborhood for over 20 years, and I've always valued the peace and quiet. When the renovations began, I felt like my home was invaded. The noise has made it difficult for me to enjoy my garden and my daily routines. I simply asked for some consideration during my quiet hours." As she spoke, Mrs. Patel's voice trembled slightly, revealing the emotional toll the conflict had taken on her. She glanced at the Martinezes, who listened intently, their expressions softening as they began to understand her perspective. "Thank you for sharing that, Mrs. Patel," Ms. Thompson said gently. "Now, let's hear from the Martinezes." Mr. Martinez leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "We appreciate your honesty, Mrs. Patel. We didn't intend to disrupt your life. We've been looking forward to these renovations for a long time, and we didn't realize how much noise we were causing. We thought we were just doing what needed to be done." Mrs. Martinez chimed in. "We're really sorry for the inconvenience. We didn't mean to make things difficult for you. We just got caught up in the excitement of the project." As the conversation continued, both families began to express their frustrations and concerns more openly. They shared stories about their lives in the neighborhood, their hopes for their homes, and the importance of maintaining a sense of community. The mediator guided them through the discussion, encouraging them to listen to one another and find common ground. After an hour of dialogue, the atmosphere in the room began to shift. The initial hostility gave way to understanding, and both families realized that they had more in common than they had thought. They were both invested in their homes and their neighborhood, and they both wanted to find a way to coexist peacefully. Ms. Thompson seized the moment. "It seems like both of you care deeply about your homes and your quality of life. Let's brainstorm some solutions that can work for both families. What can the Martinezes do to minimize the noise during Mrs. Patel's quiet hours?" The Martinezes exchanged glances, and Mr. Martinez spoke up. "We could adjust our construction schedule to avoid working during the afternoons. We can start earlier in the morning and wrap up by noon, which would give Mrs. Patel her quiet time." Mrs. Patel nodded, her heart softening. "That would help a lot. I appreciate your willingness to compromise. In return, I can keep my music down during those hours." I didn't realize how disruptive it could be. The two families began to outline a plan that would allow the Martinezes to complete their renovations while respecting Mrs. Patel's need for peace. They discussed specific hours for construction, agreed to communicate openly about any changes, and even considered ways to support each other during the process. As the mediation session drew to a close, both families felt a sense of relief. They had taken the first steps toward resolving their conflict, and the atmosphere in the room was one of newfound respect and understanding. They left the community center with a commitment to work together, eager to put their differences behind them. Part 4: Resolution. In the weeks that followed the mediation session, the changes began to take effect. The Martinezes adjusted their construction schedule, starting their work early in the morning and wrapping up by noon. The noise levels decreased significantly, allowing Mrs. Patel to enjoy her afternoons in peace. She found herself tending to her garden with a renewed sense of joy, appreciating the beauty of her flowers and the tranquility of her surroundings. In return, Mrs. Patel kept her music at a lower volume during the Martinez's construction hours, ensuring that the neighborhood remained a harmonious place. The two families began to communicate more openly, sharing updates about the renovations and discussing any concerns that arose. They even exchanged friendly waves and smiles as they passed each other in their yards. One sunny Saturday, Mrs. Patel decided to bake a batch of cookies as a gesture of goodwill. She carefully packaged them in a decorative box and walked over to the Martinez home. When she knocked on the door, Mrs. Martinez opened it with a bright smile, her eyes lighting up at the sight of the box in Mrs. Patel's hands. "Hello, Mrs. Patel. What a lovely surprise," Mrs. Martinez exclaimed, stepping aside to let her neighbor in. "Come in. What's this?" "I just wanted to say thank you for being so understanding during the renovations," Mrs. Patel replied, handing over the box. "I thought some cookies might brighten your day." Mrs. Martinez took the box, her heart swelling with gratitude. "This is so thoughtful of you. Thank you. We've been working hard, and it's nice to know we're on better terms now." As they chatted in the living room, the atmosphere was warm and inviting. The tension that had once filled the air was replaced by laughter and shared stories. Mrs. Patel learned about the Martinez's plans for their new kitchen, while Mrs. Martinez listened intently as Mrs. Patel shared her gardening tips and the joys of her favorite flowers. Meanwhile, Mr. Martinez joined them, curious about the delicious smell wafting from the box. "What's going on in here?" he asked, grinning as he caught sight of the cookies. "Mrs. Patel brought us cookies as a peace offering," Mrs. Martinez said, her voice filled with excitement. "Wow, thank you. That's really kind of you," Mr. Martinez said, taking a cookie and savoring the taste. "These are amazing. You have to share your recipe with us." As the afternoon wore on, the two families found themselves bonding over shared interests. They discussed their favorite recipes, gardening techniques, and even their plans for the upcoming neighborhood block party. The conversation flowed easily, and the initial awkwardness faded away, replaced by a sense of camaraderie. In the weeks that followed, the Martinezes completed their renovations, and the house transformed into a beautiful home that reflected their style and personality. Mrs. Patel often found herself stopping by to check on their progress, offering her help and advice whenever she could. The two families began to collaborate on small projects, such as planting flowers along the shared fence line, which further strengthened their bond. As the neighborhood block party approached, both families decided to work together to prepare. They set up a joint booth, showcasing Mrs. Patel's delicious baked goods and the Martinez's new outdoor space. The event was a resounding success, with neighbors mingling and enjoying the festive atmosphere. The once divided neighborhood was now united, and the Martinezes and Mrs. Patel were at the heart of it all. By the end of the summer, the conflict that had once threatened to tear them apart had blossomed into a beautiful friendship. The Martinezes and Mrs. Patel often shared meals, exchanged gardening tips, and even hosted joint gatherings. They had learned the importance of communication, compromise, and understanding, and their relationship became a shining example for the rest of the neighborhood. As the sun set on another beautiful day, Mrs. Patel sat on her porch, sipping tea and watching the Martinezes play with their children in the yard. She smiled, grateful for the journey they had taken together. The renovation rumble had transformed into a harmonious melody of friendship, proving that even the most challenging conflicts could lead to unexpected and rewarding resolutions.